All right, I think we'll get started. It's 11:01. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this World Food Safety Day celebration. It's been last week of running around trying to put all of this together. Great to see you all here. So today is World Food Day, and this year's theme is Grow, Nourish, and Sustain. Together, our actions are our future. That's the overall theme for this year. This is part of our week-long program. So we had done this campaign through the week. We've been running it as Safe Food for the World. We did a bunch of things around doing some trainings, some poster distribution. Also, we did a food safety conversation on standards day. We did a careers webinar for food safety. So everything around food safety. And today is kind of our final event, which is the World Food Day talk that we are doing today. Um, Before we get started, a little bit on who we are. So we are a food safety consulting company based out of Bangalore, of course. A lot of food technologists, microbiologists, and that's predominantly our team. We are dominantly a B2B, but we also work with consumers, creating awareness and helping them understand food safety. Of course, a lot of experience, regulations, all of that, and then we do our core businesses, food safety management systems. A lot of boring stuff, but I think important for everybody to make sure that you get your food safe. We'll start with this video from World Food Day. So this is WHO video, so we'll just get started with this one. Sorry. Okay, looks like the audio is not working. And let me try. That's the usual thing with these audios. And I'm wondering how to make that happen. Is the audio there? Now? No? Okay. We always struggle with the audio. Let me check out the audio settings. Try again. No, still nothing. Okay. All right. So I think we'll not worry about the audio because we'll probably end up losing time on it. I think it was texted. So I hope everybody got the message. Let me play it once more without the audio. Sorry. But yeah, just go through the key messages again. The importance, right, for of food in our lives. I'll do a running commentary to make it happen. So, and our food supply chain, right from production to where we are, so it's a long supply chain that we deal with. Nutrition is a key aspect that we need to look at. Uh, of course, wastage is another aspect. Environment is another aspect. How we are degrading our environment resources in producing our food. So all of these things are very, very critical. What we are doing. So we need to kind of look at all those aspects for a better future and a better life. I think that is the overall message. And at the end of it, it's just us. So we have to kind of make sure that we are doing it. That's why we call it "You Are the Food Heroes," and that's why we are here. Moving on, just a little bit of statistics on what we just talked about. So about one third of the world's food gets wasted, some of it during harvesting and some of it during transit. And of course, if you are throwing food on your plate, then you know you are also contributing to that. 1 in 8 person in the world is undernourished. So while they're getting food, but they're not meeting the nutritional requirements. Almost 40% of the world's population cannot afford a healthy diet. Nutrition, poverty, all of that linked together. 2 million people are obese. So on the one side, we have the problem of hunger. On the other side, we have the problem of sedentary lifestyle and obesity. Just a second, I think Chef is trying to reach me. I'll get onto the call. All right, so it looks like we managed to get over the technical difficulties and Chef should be here with us. And we were talking about the dichotomy of the situation where there are about 2 million people who are obese and overweight, and then a lot of population which remains undernourished. Of course, we talked about the environment. Food contributes about one third to the global greenhouse gas emissions. So what we produce, what we eat is linked to that. The unfortunate thing, and this is a survey that came out like last week, is that we further slipped. So in 116 countries surveyed, India has slipped to 101st position on global hunger index. We were 94th, and now we've gotten worse behind Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Nepal. Really, really sad. I don't know what to say, but let's see what we can do about it. So it's all up to us. So we'll continue the day and try to get some insights of how we could make it better. And speakers today, so we have Chris. Chris is the author of Masala Lab, The Science of Indian Cooking. Of course, he is a well-known personality, and I'll have to read. Sorry, it's a long bio, so it's hard to remember. So it's published. His book is published by Penguin Random House. It's the Amazon bestseller, talking about Indian cooking with the aim of making the readers a better cook and turning the kitchen into a joyful, creative playground of culinary experimentation. The book uses simple principles, middle school level science explanations, and hand-drawn illustrations to break down what happens in the Indian kitchen and recommends algorithm and meta models for common dish types and regional Indian subcuisines. I have read the book, and I can say that the one thing I definitely had a fight at home was about the rice and the water, where we talked about the proportions of water in the rice and how your finger dip is a better solution than the glass of water. So I'm sure you'll find very interesting insights into that. Of course, in his day job, he's the global head of digital workplace for TCS, which we all know is one of the largest technology companies and helps Fortune 1000 companies imagine the future of work, a role that is an intersection of technology, design, and culture. He is also a regular columnist on food science and culture for publications such as The Mint, The Hindu, Scroll, and BuzzFeed. And he's a trained Indian classical violinist who also plays the cello and the electric guitar and composes and produces music that you can listen to and on all major platforms. A particularly popular playlist is Sanskrit Rock, where he translates and adapts popular heavy metal and classic rock songs into Sanskrit. His music was featured on NPR, and you can follow him on Twitter at Krish Ashok and on Instagram as underscore Masala Man. So welcome, Chris. Hope to have some great conversation and we'll have a lot of discussion and maybe how plants listen to music. right? So you bring food and music together.
Absolutely.
Next, we have Chef Abhijit Shah. So Abhijit Shah is a F&B consultant, restaurateur, oniophile, author, and celebrity chef. He's the founder and managing director of Ace Hospitality Consulting and has 3 decades of national and international experience in the food service and hospitality industry. Chef Abhijit was the coach and mentor for Team India for, uh, sorry, I don't pronounce it right, but Bocuse of Asia Pacific, hopefully that's what it is, 2018, a guest judge of MasterChef India and continues to be the technical judge of Young Chefs Olympia for the last 6 years. In 2019, he was honored with the Indian Federation of Culinary Association, highest accolade, the Exceptional Achievement Award. He has been featured as one of the most influential people in the hospitality and food service industry by several prestigious publications in India. Recently, Chef Shah has launched the Pet People Cafe India with plant-forward, pet-friendly cafe in Bangalore. His critically acclaimed award-winning restaurants in the past include Caperberry and Fava. Both of them I have visited and love them. In Bangalore, India, and Shah is Singapore, amongst others. He has also been awarded Chef of the Year 2018 by BBC Gold Good Food India, Chef of the Year at the Times Food Awards 2016, and Best Chef of India at the Indian Restaurants Congress 2013, IFCA Chef Entrepreneur of the Year 2009, and SICA Golden Hat Award 2010, to name a few. So, fantastic achievement, Chef. Thank you for being with us and agreeing to be with us. There's nobody else who knows food better than you, and one better time than to have you on World Food Day. So that's our speakers. Stay tuned in for some fantastic updates. And with this, so we will go ahead and hand it over to Chris. So we'll have Chris provide his insights, and then we'll go with Chef Abhijit.
Hey, thanks, Ramesh. Yes, I hope I'm audible clearly.
Let me stop sharing. Okay.
All right. I hope I'm audible clearly. So let me just share my screen as well. Just let me know once you're seeing my screen. Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right. So, hey, hi everyone, and thanks for that introduction, Ramesh, and good to be acquainted, Abhijit. I'm looking forward to eat at your restaurant as well. So,
nice.
I want to spend these 20 minutes giving you sort of like a very high-speed 2.7 billion year story of one dish. Okay, and in that almost 3 billion year timeline, I want to give you an appreciation for where food comes
Chris,
from.
I think there is an audio issue from your side. I don't know why.
Audio issue meaning that is it?
Do about it. Just hold on a bit. Looks like it's an overall issue. And we were able to hear you earlier. I don't know
I can hear him.
Yeah.
Clearly.
No. I think you're having an issue on your end, Ramesh. I think your audio is not very clear, but we're able to hear.
Okay. All right. So it's
maybe sure. All right. Sure. Thanks. All right. So what I want to do is that hopefully and it's hard to tell the story of food in 20 minutes, but I'm going to try. And that too a story that spans almost 3 billion years, right? It's a long period of time. Why? Because I think to truly appreciate food, you need to understand its history. You need to understand where it comes from. You need to understand why something is cultivated, why some animal is domesticated, and why it tastes the way it does, and how do our brains process that taste, and how do our bodies digest that food. All of this is not at a deep level, but at least at a level where you're able to appreciate the amount of complexity that goes into what you eat, right? To just sit and have someone cook food for you is just a remarkable human achievement. We're the only animal on the planet that does it, right? So since you're all kids in school, I actually want to start with a 3 billion year story, first about plants, and then I'll talk about animals, right? So plants, why are plants the way they are? They are the way they are because 2.7 billion years ago, one particular single cell organism in the sea captured another bacteria, right? And this bacteria was something called a cyanobacteria, a bacteria that is able to convert sunlight into sugars, right? And this cell captured that bacteria and turned it into something called a chloroplast, right? So those of you who studied biology in school know that a leaf or a plant is able to photosynthesize because all of its cells have a chloroplast, which has chlorophyll, which is a molecule that is able to trap sunlight in a specific range of frequencies and able to turn that into sugars. Now, what is amazing is that plants look green because green is the one frequency of light that plants don't want. So they don't use it. So they reflect it back to you, right? So it's amazing, right? So the irony is that plants are green and it's the one color they don't like. Okay? But we perceive plants as being green and so on. So photosynthesis as a result of chlorophyll is what gives a plant the structural ability to build its mass, to build an entire tree, to build your fruits, your vegetables, grow a grain of rice, and so on. All of that goes back to the leaves of the plant's ability to actually photosynthesize. Now, what is interesting is that what is the output of photosynthesis is that chlorophyll takes the carbon dioxide that we breathe out, right? And the water from the soil and a few other elements like nitrogen and so on from the soil and turns that into sugars, right? It turns that into proteins, but mostly sugars, right? So that's important. Most protein tends to come from animals. Most carbohydrates tend to come from plants, okay? Now, sugars are the building block of literally everything in a plant, everything from the plant cell wall to why a plant is the way it is, okay? Here's a very fascinating story for you. Why don't plants move, right? Why don't they have hands and why don't they walk, right? Why are they rooted into one place? The reason is that chlorophyll actually is a very, photosynthesis is a very slow reaction and it takes a lot of time. And because it takes a lot of time, plants have to be stuck. They cannot move around. They do not have enough energy output to be able to move around. Let's really consider this. It takes a potato plant 3 months to make one potato. It takes you less than 30 seconds to eat it. Okay, so that's the distinction between animals and plants, in that plants trap the energy of the sun at a very, very slow pace. That's why trees in general live for thousands of years, whereas animals lead much, much shorter lives and so on, right? And no, the other thing to remember is that, you know, plants are an entirely different kingdom of life, right? Because it all goes back to 3 billion years ago. One cell chose to trap a cyanobacteria, and then all plants descended from that one cell. The other category, all of them descended into animals and fungi and all the other, you know, things that we see on the world today. So, and because plants cannot move, plants have to use chemical defenses. You know, an animal can run away from danger, right? An animal, a snake can, and attack you and so on, right? A tiger can chase and hunt down prey, but a plant has to only use chemical defenses against insects, are adept at producing what we would consider poisons, right? Now, here's the first insight for you. All flavor that you get in any dish that you make, from spices, from vegetables, from a tomato, from a cumin, from a chili, everything that you consider flavor is essentially a biochemical poison that the plant produces to defend against insects, right? Everything that humans consider to be tasty is a poison for some small pest or a microorganism, right? Since we're able to cook these things, we are able to enjoy the flavor as opposed to, suffer consequences that, say, an insect or something else. Why does an onion, make you cry? Is because it generates a volatile chemical called synpropane thioxide, which when it hits your eye, it breaks down, and I kid you not, into dilute sulfuric acid. Okay, so an onion, in order to prevent an animal from eating it, does a mild acid attack on you. Okay, but as humans, we are large animals, we're able to deal with it, and we're able to cook the onion. It's very hard to eat a raw onion, but you can cook the onions, and you will actually reduce the effect of that, and you can enjoy the taste. But animals, on the other hand, will leave the onion alone because it's really, really strong, and garlic, and every one of these plants. Tomatoes, the leaves of tomatoes are poisonous, right? A mango tree produces a white itching poison that makes sure that you don't pluck the mango before it is fully ripe. right? A raw mango is sometimes very, very hard to eat, but a ripe mango, the tree wants you to eat, right? So for plants, it's all about chemistry, right? And what's interesting is that glucose, when you combine them together, you can produce starch, right? So plants essentially make starch so that they can survive winters, they can survive, seasons when there's no water or there's no rain, when they need that energy. So the potato plant stores backup energy in its roots, like the ginger plant or the turmeric plant or a carrot or a radish plant, all of it store it underground, right? And in the other context, a mango or a brinjal is essentially making a fruit that is attractive for animals to eat it so that they can spread the seeds and so on. So in a sense, what I want to tell you is that when you're making a dish, and I'm going to, in this process, I'm going to ultimately end up, helping you make a dish, right? So let's take the ingredients like onion, garlic, chilies, tomato, and spices like cumin and curry leaves and coriander. Every one of these comes from a plant that is synthesizing chemicals to keep pests away, and we consider them to be very tasty as a result of that, right? And again, remember, this is why organic food tends to taste slightly better than non-organic food, because in an organic plant, it actually undergoes a lot more pest attacks, and the plant defends against it. And because the plant defends against it, it makes it much more tastier, right? And so this is essentially all our plant ingredients in the dish that we're about to make. And I just want to tell you one interesting thing about chilies. Chilies are particularly fascinating because chilies produce a molecule that fool the nerves in our mouth and actually everywhere as well into thinking that you're eating something really hot. And by hot, I mean temperature, right? So high temperature, because you don't want to burn your mouth, right? And your brain is fooled. And so it immediately sends a lot of, it makes you sweat. It sends a lot more blood to your face to cool you down. And because it thinks you might be in pain, it also releases dopamine so that you feel pleasured, so etc. That's why people are addicted to spicy food, because eating chilies literally gives you pleasure, right? Along with the pain, right? And the pain is actually not a real pain because it's only fooling your nerves, because it's actually not burning anything, right? So that's the fascinating thing about what chilies do. And why does the chili plant do this? Because birds do not have the sensor for the molecule that causes heat. So birds are able to eat the chilies and then deposit the seeds somewhere else. And that's how the chili plant actually pollinates itself and so on. So this is, in some sense, I'm really oversimplifying here, but the story of everything that you eat, every plant that you eat has a unique story. It is about photosynthesis. It is about carbohydrates. It is also about biochemical poisons to keep fungi and bacteria away, right? Now let's kind of get to the other really more fascinating story. 3 billion years ago, that evolution happened. But 65 million years ago, which is still very, very, far back in the past, 65 million years ago, it is said that an asteroid hit Earth somewhere in Mexico, right? In the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. And that asteroid impact is said to have wiped out 80% of all life on the planet, and particularly wiped out any animal or any plant that was more than 2 kgs in weight. It was such a catastrophic sort of incident, right? And it is estimated that it is that caused the extinction of the dinosaurs, okay? Now, I have a very interesting picture of a dinosaur here. Only now do we know that it is estimated that dinosaurs had feathers also, okay? We are used to seeing them look all dangerous and all big teeth and so on, but no, most dinosaurs also had feathers. How do we know that? Because evolutionarily, all modern day birds descended from dinosaurs. So the chicken that you eat descended from a flying dinosaur 65 million years ago, and more importantly, descended from a small dinosaur that survived this asteroid impact, right? If not for this asteroid impact, mammals would have never dominated the planet, because we would still be dominated by reptiles, because small mammals survived by burrowing underground. And small flying dinosaurs survived, small reptiles survived. That's why we don't have dinosaurs today, okay? So now the interesting thing is that flying dinosaurs became birds, and one such bird in what is today the Bihar and Bengal area was domesticated by human beings around 10,000 years ago. And that's what is today's chicken. That is what is today poultry that we eat. Essentially, the jungle fowl is a bird that only lays an egg once a month. Okay, and it's also very lean. It's very muscular because it has to, go around. It has to eat insects and so on. But over time, we have selectively bred them so that they are fatter. They walk a lot more slowly. They've lost the ability to fly. And more importantly, The females lay an egg almost every day. Okay, so that's why. So domestication is a very human act of taking something from the wild and making it useful for us, right? And we do this both with plants and we do this with animals as well, right? So we did it with goat. So the goat was domesticated in the Middle East. The cow was domesticated somewhere in Europe. The chicken was domesticated in India. So that's why in my talk, I often talk about a chicken-based dish because, well, there's nothing more uniquely Indian going back the last 10,000 years than a chicken curry. Okay, so that is the sort of story that I want to tell. And therefore, what do you get from animals? You get animal protein. We are animals. We need animal protein. Even people who are vegetarian do have to consume animal protein in the form of milk or paneer, which again gives you animal protein, right? You need all of those amino acids. The only vegetarian sources, plant sources of all amino acids are soy and peas. Okay, so vegans tend to use proteins that come from soy or protein to actually get the missing amino acids that they need as protein and so on. And protein is particularly interesting. Okay, what we eat from an animal is usually the muscle tissue, right? And look at a plant. A plant is hard, crunchy. So that's why, because their cell walls, because of choices that plants made 3 billion years ago, are hard. That's why your vegetables are hard and crunchy. Okay. And muscle tissue, on the other hand, has to move so it's flexible and soft. So that's why plants taste the way they do and animals taste the way they do. Now, what is interesting is that it's opposite, right? When you cook a plant, it becomes soft because the starches actually gelatinize. When you cook muscle tissue, it becomes hard. So essentially, it's opposite. So plants become soft when cooked, meat becomes hard when cooked. The second important difference is that plants, when you add salt, the salt will pull water out of the cell by osmosis. So salt dehydrates plants. On the other hand, adding salt, when you soak meat in salt, it actually results in the meat becoming juicier because the salt prevents the muscle from losing water. All of us know this because when you exercise and you drink water, you drink it along with sugar and salt, right? So this is so in a sense, the long story short, so you have your plant ingredients, you have your protein ingredients. And the other important thing that actually comes from animals historically, but nowadays we mostly get it from plants, is fats. For most of humanity's history, the only source of fat was the fat under animal skins, right? So animal fat was the most commonly used fat. And then we discovered that by crushing things like sesame, crushing things like groundnut and so on, that we could actually produce unsaturated fats. The science is still evolving on which is better for health and so on. But broadly, in general, because fats have 9 calories per gram, in general, you should be moderate as you grow older. As a young person, by all means, I think it doesn't matter. You're free to eat most of these things. But essentially, so protein and fats largely tend to come from animals, and you have your carbohydrates coming from plants, right? So you have your chicken, right? Now, once you have all of that, very briefly, you get to the kitchen, right? When you get to the kitchen, you have to decide what material to use, right? So should you use iron? Should you use aluminum? Should you use copper? And so on? Should you use clay or terracotta and so on, right? The first kind of cooking material that mankind used was clay, right? Baking clay, bake a vessel, boil something, in it. It made a big difference, right? Because otherwise, before that, the only way to cook was to show something directly on fire. Whereas when you cook a soup, it made life better. Think about it, right? That in the time before cooking or cooking vessels, if you lost your teeth, you couldn't survive because everything was harder because you had to cook directly. The moment you could make soups, you could make gravies, even people who lost their teeth were able to survive. And so our mankind's sort of, average age extended. Older people who lost their teeth were able to survive longer because they could now eat soups, right? So kitchen materials really matter. Now, the only thing important here to remember is that some materials, you cannot cook acidic ingredients. Like, for example, cooking, say, tomato or tamarind in copper or aluminum vessels will cause the copper or aluminum to be leached into the dish. And so we tend to use stainless steel, which does not react, right? So again, all of this is high school chemistry and physics, just understanding what's happening in the kitchen. And the kitchen is a laboratory where you can truly understand what your teacher is saying, because a school laboratory will never bring things to life in a way that the kitchen will, right? And again, you can understand why a metal gets hotter than water. Why? Because metal is solid, all the atoms are close by, they transfer heat more efficiently. So heat by conduction is much faster than heat by convection, which is what happens when you cook something in water, right? So when you dry cook something, it gets hot, it burns faster. Whereas when you add water, it slows the whole thing down, because water is a poorer conductor of electricity, of heat than metals, right? The other important thing is that all those, flavor molecules that we spoke about that are actually poisons that the plant produces to kill insects and so on, they are not water soluble. They are all fat soluble. Think about it, right? If all of those poisons were water soluble, any rain will wash it off the plant. So the plant has made it fat soluble, right? So that's why in all Indian cooking, you always start with oil and then you add the spices, because the spice flavors dissolve only in fat. So all Indian cooking, you start with oil, you end with oil or ghee or any of those things, because that is where the flavor lies, right? So that's flavor absorption, right? And ultimately, remember that cooking is really about breaking large molecules into small molecules, okay? It is in some sense the outsourcing of digestion, right? Because we are able to do that, human beings have been able to spend a lot more of our energy building a big brain. That's why human beings are the smartest creatures on the planet, because we learn to cook. Because cooking is the outsourcing of digestion, breaking large molecules into small, making it easy for us to digest. A cow spends 60% of its energy digesting grass. We spend less than 20% of our energy digesting our food, and that makes a big difference, right? So again, we already kind of spoke about the differences between why vegetables are the way they are and meat is the way they are. An important thing to remember that vegetables cook at a higher temperature than meat does, right? Most people think it's the other way around. Protein starts cooking and getting harder from 50, 60 Celsius onwards. But starch requires almost 70 Celsius to actually start to cook down, right? And so sometimes when you're cooking something with both vegetables and meat, you'll end up overcooking the meat or undercooking the vegetables. So that's why, at least in restaurants, they tend to cook them separately and then they kind of mix them and so on. Last but not the least, I think a microwave is people have a lot of misconceptions about it, but microwave is a form of electromagnetic radiation that's good at one thing, heating water and nothing else, right? The frequency of microwave radiation just is enough to flip a water molecule. And so if you change the direction, which is what a microwave does, it heats water, right? And that's all it does. So anything that has water in it can be easily cooked in a microwave. Last but not the least, how do you perceive this, right? People think that your tongue does all the work. No, 80% of how you taste and experience food is done by the nose. So that's why when you have a cold, you cannot enjoy food. Your tongue can only detect salt, sweet, bitter, sour, and umami. These are the 5 taste buds. But your nose can detect 10,000 different smells, 10,000 different aromas, right? Coffee, for example, has 600 different unique molecules, right? That we can detect, and we can detect very, very tiny amounts. And so that is why it's the combination of all of this that you perceive as flavor in your brain, right? And last but not the least, a lot of tasting actually happens all the way down to your stomach as well. And we still don't know exactly why we have taste buds in the stomach. So we thought taste buds exist only in the tongue, but no, we have taste buds in the stomach too. We believe it's probably to detect poisons and to detect very strongly acidic foods, but still a lot left to be understood and so on. Another important thing, if you're at least South Indian, you know that in many parts of the world, in addition to cooking, we also have formed a friendly relationship with some bacteria like lactobacteria and yeast to do some of the work of cooking for us, because they're really, really good at it, right? So you can turn milk into yogurt by simply introducing some bacteria. You can turn flour into bread by introducing this fungi called yeast, right? And these are, again, mankind has lived with these things. And in fact, there is now yeast and lactobacteria everywhere. So if you just leave it to the air, there's a good chance that you're going to get some of these things to get fermented. But the risk here is that there is no guarantee that you'll only get the good guys. You can also get bad guys, right? So understanding the safety of fermentation is by itself something complicated that you need to understand. Now, my last slide, and as I get to my 20 minutes, is very simple. Some key messages, right? Food is a 3 billion year story of plants, of animals, of the choices these things made, of evolution, of domestication, right? Of cellular microbiology that determines why something tastes the way it does and why something grows the way it is. Why do some things grow in some parts of the world and some things do not grow in some part of the world? So it's important, therefore, when you understand this, that you eat mindfully, understand where your food comes from. It's not just that somebody cooked it for you. Understand, did you buy it at the supermarket? Did you buy it directly from a farmer? How was it grown? What pesticides were used? Were there any other kind of processing that happened before you ate it? To understand the sustainability, to understand the carbon footprint of what you eat is very, very important, right? And also remember that because your brain processes taste in a very unique way based on how you grow up and the memories that your brain formed as you were young, don't judge what other people eat, right? People eat a huge variety of things. You know, some people eat meat, some people eat pork, some people eat beef, some people do not eat these things, some people eat insects, some people eat seafood. Every one of these choices are local choices made by people with local available ingredients. And therefore, all opinions about food are largely useless because every opinion on food is a personal opinion. There is no way you can generalize and judge what somebody else eats, right? So this is a thing. And last but not the least, geography does not lend authenticity to food. People do, because people migrate. I want to give the example of pav bhaji, okay? Pav bhaji is a dish that all of us like. We enjoy, we eat it on the street and so on. The pav is Portuguese. The potato is from Peru. The tomato and capsicum and chilies are from Mexico. The carrot, the cauliflower and beans are all from Europe. In fact, other than the pepper and the spices, there is not a single Indian ingredient in pav bhaji. And yet, it makes it a uniquely Indian dish because this is a part of the world where we absorb flavors from everywhere and we make something our own, right? From biryani to every one of these things. These are all dishes that have cuisine that has grown by embracing other cultures from around the world and so on. And I think we did speak about why organic food is tastier. One last interesting thing, when you harvest a carrot for the shop, it has to be harvested when it's not ripe. Okay, because otherwise it won't survive the transportation for you to get into the city. When you're sitting in Chennai, your carrot probably grew in Ooty, right? And it traveled 400, 500 kilometers. So it has to be harvested when it is not ripe and it's not nutritionally not ideal, right? It has to survive the transportation and get to the store. On the other hand, frozen carrots are harvested at peak nutrition and frozen pretty much a few hours after they're actually harvested. So always consider, unless you dig the plant out of your soil in your own kitchen garden, in many situations, frozen food is actually fresher than fresh food. Okay. Again, this might come as a surprise, but always think hard about where your food comes from. And you'll find that a lot of things are not very easily understandable. On that note, so, I told you where chicken comes from. I told you where all those ingredients come from. Go make a chicken curry or a vegetable curry for that matter, and learn to cook and understand all of this. And when you learn to cook, I think you'll appreciate biology, history, chemistry, thermodynamics, and microbiology and evolution a lot better, and we'll make better choices. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. This is fantastic. I'm told my mic doesn't work very well. Okay, so I'll move it here closer. Yeah, I think we talk about farm to fork. So you talked about farm to stomach. So I think that is indeed great. We will probably come back to questions in a bit, and we will start. So we talked about the science of food, and now we'll have Chef. I'm sure he will talk about the art of food, right? Because that's what he does as a profession. So welcome, Chef, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Ramesh. And that was indeed a very fascinating presentation about the history and the science of ingredients and the food and what it means today in terms of flavor perception, in terms of sustainability and all of that. So I think it was very, very exciting and interesting. And I'm sure that your students who are attending this webinar would be very, very excited to hear about this. And I think that there are a few important points that, Krish has made, which is very, very pertinent in today's world. So while Krish has definitely covered the history, I would like to cover more about what is happening in today's world and what we do mostly about cooking. So hello, everybody. Good morning. My name is Abhijit Shah. I'm a chef entrepreneur. I am a food and beverage consultant, as well as I am an author. So I have written the Caperberry cookbook, which is about the science of cooking. And it also gives the 12 years history of how I set up that restaurant, what are the key nuances, what is it that we were trying to do. And there were many misconceptions about cooking flavors, like just now Krish Ashok mentioned about that frozen food being more fresher than fresh food as a perception, a lot of distance and all of these things. There are many myths that have been busted in the last 25 years or so by research through food scientists and chefs, and it's a collaborative effort. So now, having spent 30 years in the industry, I have worked both in India as well as internationally. I've had undergone training. I've studied in the Johnson Wales University in the US. I've studied in Delhi IHM Pusa, and before that I went to school in Darjeeling. And so for me, being a chef was a bit unusual in terms of the fact that nobody in my family in the past, except my mother or grandmother, would cook at home, and men were not definitely part of the kitchen. But for me, when I was in college, it was exciting and interesting to see that how the science of cooking works, the art of cooking works. And I got very fascinated by it. And that is the reason why I decided to join kitchen. If you talk about today's situation, the main point that I would like to make is about sustainable dining. So that is something that I have been propagating. I never want to pass any judgment about whoever is eating what, and whatever they want to eat, they have the most freedom to eat what they want. The idea is that how we can become more sustainable in dining practices. Now, we hear this term very often, sustainability, but sometimes we don't really understand what it means in the simplest term. It means when you are consuming more than what the earth can produce. That means the depletion, the permanent depletion of resources on which life depends on is an area of concern. So this includes the climate change that is happening. This includes the scarcity of water that is happening. This includes the poisoning of the food cycle due to the excessive usage of fertilizers and chemical pesticides. This includes the usage of single-use plastics, which is polluting the world like never before. And all this has been forced by only one species on this earth, that is the human beings. And the population explosion has been one of the main reasons why this has happened. And also a careless attitude towards the environment, while going on mindlessly about what we call as so-called development of this world and the development of the human process. So I think that eating habits also, like everything else, has to evolve. I used to eat everything being a chef, and even today I taste everything. It is not that I have given up anything permanently. I have stopped eating chicken 3 years ago. I have eaten probably meat only 10 times in the last 3 years. I have reduced my fish consumption in the last 3 years by 75%. I have reduced my consumption of eggs by, say, 60 to 75% in the last 3 years. And also dairy and all other products that are related to animals. And this includes honey. Today, I see a fascination of people, trying to eat honey because it is being marketed as one of the healthy alternatives. But there are so many other healthy alternatives to refined sugar that it is unbelievable that we have to go after the bees, which are responsible for sustenance of life in this world. And they are becoming gradually, they're dying in millions, and this can be a major problem as far as the growth and the pollination of the plants are concerned, and which will ultimately lead to a situation where we will not be having enough food. And we can already see that despite producing so much food and despite all the effort, there is 50% of the world's food produced goes for a waste. So that is another area of sustainability. We have to make sure that we are producing food locally, consuming food as much as possible locally, so that there is less wastage, there is less carbon footprint in terms of transferring the food. In the last few years, I have been a proponent of plant-based food. And I do believe that if you want to eat healthy today, and if you talk about cruelty-free dining, then plant-based is the way forward. While all plants do not have all proteins, they have a combination. If you eat them in the right combination, if you understand a little bit about the biology and the nutrition aspects of any plant-based food, then you can have them in combination in a planned manner, so that you are able to fulfill the requirements of all amino acids. So basically, when you talk about plant-based foods, there is definitely the food that you're talking about is mostly the food that comes from any plant, for that matter. It doesn't matter whether it comes from the land or the sea, or there are plant-based food even from the sea. There is a lot of flora and fauna in the sea as well. So if you talk about flavors, there is no flavor today that is not possible to achieve out of plant-based food. So does that mean that I'm saying that everybody should eat plant-based food on a daily basis? No. It means that if you can reduce the consumption of non-plant-based food to a large extent, it will again lead to a situation of regeneration of the world. 75% of the world's arable water goes towards the cultivation of different crops. Now, why are we doing that? Why are we trying to grow crops that are so water intensive, when the diversity of the grains and things that are there that is possible to cultivate is so much possible in arid lands and with much lesser water? So you must also be conscious when you're talking about plant-based food that how much water does it consume while we are growing it. So these are resources these are all finite resources that we're talking about, this earth has to offer. And we have to be conscious when we are, when we're eating our next meal. As a chef, as a person who's been in the area of food business for such a long time, I believe that it is my fundamental duty to, practice what I preach, and also, spread this message about mindful dining, about cruelty-free dining, about sustainable dining. And I think that if the work that I do now on, and in the last 5 years, there's been all based on this philosophy of sustainable dining. That doesn't mean that, in my restaurants in the future or in the past, I have not served meat. But do we include more plant-based options? Do we include more vegetarian options for customers to come and try? That is what it is. So let us try and unite towards, creating a world which is more sustainable. Let us support the farmers and, encourage them to see that how they can produce food that is less harmful for the environment and for human beings, that is making food, growing food without the usage of chemical fertilizers and usage of chemical pesticides. As you know, that for many years, there was no fertilizers, chemical fertilizers and these things that were used. And this revolution of, trying to feed many people, more people, was brought about by big industrial giants and large corporations. And I think that the responsibility or the means and the wherewithal of going back to the good old days also lies with them. But we can always do our bit in trying to do mindful eating. There's a lot that I'm trying to do. For example, my current project that I'm working on is the Bangalore airport. It's a large project. It touches much more people than what my restaurants would do. That is what it is. There is a lot of people. We are trying to come up with urban farming in the airport. We have a lot of land, both outside the airport and something urban farming, because within the airport, this gives the ability for us to have hyper local produce and will give us the ability to have hyper-local produce, because there are so many restaurants and so many people who come there, and so many outlets and food service establishments which can buy these things. And that is not good enough. This is just an example to inspire many more people to do such things. We will also be working with farmers around Devanahalli to see around the airport, to see that they also go in for more sustainable methods and more organic methods of farming. So basically, when I say organic, I'm not talking about certified organic. I'm talking about food which is without the usage of chemical fertilizers and pesticides. So this is all that I would like to say in terms of the food that scenario that is happening today. And food safety is becoming increasingly critical for us to look into, especially post the pandemic. So I really appreciate the work that is being done by Mr. Ramesh Agrawal and his company towards promoting food safety. So I'm wishing you all the best towards having a safe and a healthy future with the help of healthy dining. Thank you.
Thank you, Chef. Very insightful indeed. I think there was, so we'll take a couple of questions. I know there is a hand raised, and we'll try to get to you. Before that, I think Rishikesh had a question saying we're talking about the history of food, but not really the present and future of Indian food technologies. So I know, Chef, you talked a little bit about the plant-based food, and I think there is fair amount of technology involved in that. Apart from that, you would like to comment on technology involved in the future of food?
Is the question for me?
So you can take a shot at it, and we'll let Chris also add his comment.
So if we are talking about technology like food or any other thing is ever evolving, and usage of technology is something that is being done in every area of human life, and food is no exception, and cooking is no exception. So there is a lot that we as chefs need to learn about technology. Things like, robotics, artificial intelligence, things like data science, things like to avoid, why do you use data science? To do better forecasting, to avoid the wastage of food. And all of this we are doing. So there is a lot that we need to learn and do. There was a time when we used to use equipment which are not very energy efficient. And today, as a kitchen consultant and as a kitchen and a food service facility planner, I have planned the facility plan, done the complete facility planning for the Bangalore airport after, in the last 2 years. So we are using very energy efficient equipment. And the idea is again based on sustainability. So you have to understand that technologies should be used for the benefit of mankind, but at the same time, keeping in mind that it does not harm anything else on this earth in a negative manner. So I do believe that there is technology being used. And if you talk about specific technologies, I have told you that robotics are being used, artificial intelligence is being used, data science is being used, and a lot of advanced equipment. If I talk about advanced equipment, I started using them many years ago, things like sous vide and vacuum packing machines and all of that, which were earlier used in food labs only. But then we know that they were important in the kitchen because food labs are very few and far between. But as you know, that there is kitchens everywhere, but not every kind of kitchen can have that kind of not every kitchen can have the latest in technology. But what I would like to say here is, like in the airport, we have stopped usage of fuel that is used, any fuel that is used from the petrochemicals. So no natural gas, no cooking gas, nothing. So because it is ultimately a hydrocarbon and it creates the carbon footprint. So now we have converted everything into electricity. That is point number one. Safety is one of the reasons for it, but also the usage of less carbon. Now it depends on where this electricity is being produced from is important also, because we don't know exactly sometimes where we are getting this. So we have to use renewable sources to produce this electrical energy, which we are using to in our kitchens as well as in agriculture. That is why solar, wind, and all other forms of renewable energy is becoming more important. You have seen that, what has come to the forefront for all the talks that we do about, sustainable and renewable food energy, that still today 75% of the electricity comes from non-renewable sources. And, we have been reading in the news in the last 1 week or 2 weeks that we have only 1 day's coal left, 2 days coal left. So why should have India worried? Why should the world worry? In fact, why should Europe or America, which are big, or for that matter, China, worry about things when they talk about so big things about climate change and all of these things? It is because in the behind, there is technology is yet to catch up. And there is a lot that we need to do in terms of using sustainable energy sources towards our cooking. So let us not see technology as a small piece of it. See the larger picture of technology. That is what I would like to suggest.
Great points, Abhijit. I think the two things that I wanted to add, one is that the two particular strands of future technologies that I think will have the biggest impact. And there's, by the way, a very big list. He spoke about robotics. I think kitchen automation, home automation, make life easier, take less time and cook more nutritious food, have better sensors that are able to catch things so that you reduce wastage. And those kinds of things are obviously there. But for me, the two game-changing ones, one that he already talked about, plant-based meat is going to be the single biggest game-changing from a climate change standpoint, because it will be a sustainable, energy sustainable way to produce meat. Historically, the challenge originally has been the amino acid mix and so on. We've fixed all of that, right? Now you can get your plant-based chicken nuggets and so on that have the same amino acid profile. The recent fast 5 years has always been science and research into getting the taste and the texture right. We spoke about why plants taste the way they do and animals taste the way they do. To get that taste in plant-based protein requires a fair amount of R&D. And I believe that at least in the last time I traveled outside of India, there are already burger patties that are available where even a person who's a foodie finds it very hard to distinguish between a plant-based burger patty and an actual beef patty. And it's astonishing because they actually produce thing using beet juice and pea protein and even rice and wheat protein. They're able to synthesize these things, and much good for the planet, because we're running out of fish, and we at the end of the day, large scale animal husbandry is bad for the planet. The second really fascinating bit of very early stage technology is in the area of nutrition, where we have a global, at least in all of the richer growing parts of the world, we have a crisis of obesity, a crisis of type 2 diabetes, lifestyle related diseases, as the result of us not evolving to have this much cheap carbohydrates be available this fast. Direct sweets and direct fats and direct sort of, unprocessed. So we don't eat like millet based, high fiber things. We tend to eat maida. We tend to eat the things that give us the sugar high really, really quickly. And the problem is that we've evolved to find these things delicious. It's very hard to not eat a potato chip or something that's deep fried because our brains are wired for it, right? But there is now groundbreaking research after we understand how we process flavor. Can I take spinach? Can I take kale? Can I take healthy ingredients? Okay. And can I genetically modify them so that they trigger the same receptors that a French fry does? Right? So can I actually make a kale or can I make a spinach taste in your brain like a French fry? And that technology is not too far away. It might be a year or two away. And I think that also has the potential to really address the fundamental weaknesses we have for certain kinds of unhealthy food and actually make a room for a lot more healthier snacks as we go forward as well. So these are the two technological things for the future that I'm looking forward to.
Fantastic. I think there is somebody who...
I'd like to add here. Can I add something here?
So, sure. Yes.
Quickly.
Not a marketing or a sales pitch. So it is like, Chris said that, he has eaten meats that are, plant-based. And so you do not go that far to abroad now. So if you want to eat in a sustainable manner, you want to eat plant-based meats, you want to try a pet-friendly cafe that is more democratic, and please do come to the Pet People Cafe in HSR layout and, try it out for yourself. And, I'm sure that you will find it very exciting. Was that whenever you talked about plant-based or vegan food, it had a bad name to it because there was resources were limited and the chefs did not have the know-how to do it. And even today, it is something that the chefs are only beginning to learn. So my idea of opening this cafe was to make plant-based food as exciting or even more exciting than your regular food that you eat. So that is something that I would like to, inform everybody, because that will give you an idea. Because when you think about plant-based food, you think about boring. No, I can assure you that it is today one of the most exciting restaurants that you can come to in Bangalore. So be there and try it out and you will realize.
Definitely, chef. So we are in HSR layout. We'll see you at your cafe soon. Meanwhile, I think there is Mr. Siddeshwar who has raised his hand. So, Mr. Siddeshwar, you have a question? Okay. While we are waiting for for him to unmute himself, there's another one from Shankar Linge Gowda. He asks, at what time temperature combination food value or nutritional value can be restored or protected? I'm assuming preserved and protected. So your thoughts, chef?
It's not actually, it's a very common question we get asked, right? But the reality is that there are no simple answers, and I think sometimes, unfortunately, we tend to look for simple answers, right? At a very general level, it's all cooking or all application of heat is going to reduce some amount of nutrition to some extent, at least for the micronutrients, the vitamins, the phytochemicals, the antioxidants, and so on. Okay. But at the same time, you have to balance that with the fact that many things are inedible when they are uncooked. Okay. So you can't eat dal, you can't eat rajma. They're actively poisonous for you if you eat them raw, right? So you have to cook them, right? So in that, you have to balance. The second misconception is the idea that that vegetables are at their most at their highest nutrition when they are raw is also wrong. Okay. Tomatoes and carrots are two famous examples where the cooked tomato and the cooked carrot has much more nutrition, far more availability of beta carotene and lycopene and vitamin C in the case of tomatoes and so on when they're actually cooked. So, for those of you who are like, oh, I will only eat the salad. No, I think mix it up, right? So the general solution always is to mix things up rather than try to say, oh, there's just one way to get maximum nutrition out of everything. I don't think that should be the goal. A common example, people will say that, no, let's use jaggery and honey instead of sugar because jaggery has iron and all of that. No, here's the problem. The amount of iron in jaggery is such a small, tiny proportion that if you are getting your iron as your daily allowance from jaggery, you need to eat 100 grams of jaggery. And that's 100 grams of sugar. That's not good for you, right? So the idea is that you have to understand that all sources of sugar are just sugar. Okay, use it for flavor reasons. Don't eat honey and jaggery because they're healthier. They're just sugar at the end of the day, right? So it's also important to understand that nutrition is not has settled a science as we think it is. It's constantly evolving, and every year. So I grew up at a time when they said no, fats are bad. You should reduce fats. Okay, but now they particularly said saturated fats are bad. Now it's like everywhere around the world, vegans are eating coconut oil. Okay, which is like ultra saturated fat, and it seems to be okay. And now ghee is considered a good thing, and so on. In fact, certain kinds of refined oil are considered bad now, but we spent most of the 80s believing that refined oil will protect your heart and so on. So the problem is that never go by the immediate science, and it's almost always better to be balanced. And I think Michael Pollan's advice that eat food, meaning that don't eat processed food, eat anything that you can directly cook and so on, mostly plants, right? Try and keep meat down to a minimum and not too much. Okay. So I think that's the only universal nutritional advice, and eat diversely, eat many things, right? Don't eat the same thing again and again. So that's really all there is to it.
Chef, you want to add?
So I think that, Krish has covered most of it. So I think when we are talking about, nutrition, we have to talk about a balanced diet. That is what it is. And, you must understand a little bit. It doesn't matter, like even when you're watching something like a Netflix, you must know how to, switch the channels or which is your favorites, how to get your favorites out of it. So similarly, when you are eating also, little bit of knowledge is important about how you balance your diet. And, I think that every food has its own, what you call is nutritional value. And, you must try and see that what are the things that you need to avoid. So basically, life is all about balance. It is also about moderation. So this is what is the key to diet and nutrition.
Okay. Great, Chef. I know there are more questions coming in, but in the interest of time, I'll have to kind of, I know Rajiv, I think, has been putting in questions and comments. But we are not able to kind of take those. We are already at 12:06. We'll proceed with the rest of the agenda. So thank you for the talk, and we'll move on to, so just as a background, we organized a contest, a poster contest for students, and I'll just kind of quickly project what I'm saying, so you don't have to, you have a choice or looking at the screen. All right, so I think I got it here. Yeah, so I think I have it here. So we did this World Food Day poster design contest, which was to encourage children from school, and some of them may object because we have the senior category, which went up to grade 10. So they're not really children, but yeah, teenagers, I would like to call them. Do a poster design for the World Food Day to capture some of their thoughts around food and food safety. So we had two categories, and then the junior category was 5th to 7th grade, the senior about 8th to 10th grade. And totally we had over 150 registrations coming from 5 states and 20 schools. I'm sure if we had done a better outreach, we would have had more people join in. But I think this is a great kind of number to start with. Out of these 150, we shortlisted 90. After careful evaluation, we put it up for public voting. There were about 14,500 votes cast over the last 3 days. We had to stop it last night because we had to finally arrive at the judges. But thank you everyone for participating in this. A lot of the students are here today joining this, and we'll announce the results. So first of all, a list of schools which participated. Thank you very much for encouraging your students to think about food safety and on this World Food Day, as well about food in general. I think it's important. We see this as an opportunity to remind children. I think we talk about they are our future, so it's important that they understand, and this is our opportunity to kind of remind them that there is something, right? It's not a packet of chips that you are eating. There is plants, and then there is history, and then there is the future, and then there is the environment. So I think thank you to all the schools who encourage the children to participate. A quick maps, of course, we are Bangalore, so we are able to reach the southern part much more than the northern part. We'll do a better effort next year to reach out to a bigger audience. And here are the finalists for the junior category. I don't know if the audio will work, probably not, but you can look at all of them that made it to the list. All right, so that is our finalists for the junior category, and for the winners, we'd like to request Chef Abhijit to announce, and it's coming up on the screen. Oops, sorry, I think I pressed the wrong button. Okay, and here are the winners for the junior category, Chef. So there is 3. There is 1 for the judge's choice and 2 for popular choice. So, Chef, you want to read them out?
Okay, so this is really interesting, and I'm really amazed by whatever I had glimpses of, and it shows the interest level of the children, in understanding food safety and, also celebrating World Food Day, which is one of the fundamental activity as we carry out as human beings on this planet. So, the winners here are judges' choice the name is Hanfa MM. School is KMM English School from Kuzingada, Kerala. So congratulations to Hanfa MM for that. It's a beautiful poster that has been made. A popular choice award goes to S. Sarvesh Ratnam. And he is from School Mahatma Montessori Matriculation Higher Secondary School in Madurai. So congratulations to Sarvesh Ratnam. And the popular choice award, which is the other one, which is the second one, it goes to it is called Malohan. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think Malolan.
Malolan.
Oh, Malolan. Okay,
Malolan. Yes.
Malolan. Okay. Malolan ji from Kola Perumal Chetty Vaishnav Senior Secondary Chennai. So this is really wonderful. So we have all the three winners, and I think that what we should rejoice is that, the I think that who's participated in this competition is a winner, and it is just that there is an outcome which is based on certain parameters. So those who have participated, my congratulations to them, and those who have won, my congratulations to them too. Wishing you the very best. I hope that you will spread the word of food safety and food sustainability amongst your friends, amongst your colleagues, and in the world.
Thank you, Chef. Indeed, very fantastic set of posters that were sent to us. It's been a rush trying to pick some of the ones. All of them are really close. And things that we did not put up for voting were also good, but just that we weren't very sure our website would take the traffic. So we had to kind of do a first round, and we didn't want everybody to get overwhelmed, but it's been a fantastically overwhelming response. Moving on to the senior category. So let me play this out. So this is the senior category finalists. Okay, some very, again, fantastic thoughts and ideas, and we want Krish to announce the winners coming up next.
Yeah, so it was quite a difficult choice, and it was such a remarkable set of posters. And I just want to say one thing, I think when I particularly saw the judge's choice, the one that won, it is that when you want to communicate something to people, I think science speaks to the mind. Science and rationality speaks to the mind, but art speaks to the heart. I think good communication requires both. And I think when I saw, Emma Nicholson's, the art, Emma from Kolaperumal Chetty Vaishnava Senior Secondary School in Chennai. It sort of reminded me that, sometimes great art has a way of changing people's minds. And I'd urge all of you to also look at Picasso's famous painting called Guernica, right? It's one of the most famous anti-war paintings. It went around Europe, and it really started changing people's minds against the war and so on. And I think in that sense, it is just so beautifully done. And so, I think congratulations, Emma, and I hope you continue not just, I'm sure, family and others will put pressure on you to do science and other related things, but never give up art. And I think it's a skill that will serve you well in life. I think as we head towards a world of automation, robots will do science, robots will do engineering, but human beings will still do art. And I think on that note, congratulations, Emma Nicholson, for that fantastic poster. And I think on popular choice, again, very, very tough to choose. And honestly, I'd rated all of these three pretty much at the same level. M. Santoshini from SBOA Metric Higher Senior Secondary School in Chennai. And also S. Sri Vaishnavi from SBOA Matriculation Higher Secondary School, Madurai. Right? Both of these are beautiful, lots of details. I think visual storytelling is always more persuasive than writing text. And I think all of you have looking forward, wishing you the best of luck in your future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Fantastic. So we have the winners. And if the winners are online, if you want to raise your hand, we'd like to hear from you. And what were your thoughts? I thought I saw Emma somewhere.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm really thankful to you all, sirs. Thank you all so much. I'm really surprised. Thank you a lot.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Emma, for putting in so much effort and submitting.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? Who's there? Okay, Sarvesh is here. Sarvesh, go ahead. We can hear you.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm happy, sir.
Good. Anything else you want to add about what is motivating you to do it?
Yes, sir.
Again, I think our message is continue doing it, spread the word. I think that's important. Letting more people know about it, and then I think that's the only way we can increase the awareness. And if more people know about it, we will make better choices. I think finally, it's about what choices we make. Somebody from Sri Vaishnavi? Sri Vaishnavi School? Okay, not here right now. So that's all good. So all the winners from the senior category do receive a book, autographed and signed by Krish Ashok. So we have it with us, and it will reach you. We will get in touch with you for this and get your addresses and a kit for you to take this forward. And the junior category folks also receive an art kit from our side, and of course, a certificate for participation. So thank you all for submitting all your entries. It was really fun going through your art and looking at your thoughts. So it was, we look forward to kind of continuous engagement with you guys. If you have anything, so we said you can reach out to Chris, you can reach out to us. The handles are there and we'll share, and this is our information. And we're almost done with the session. Before we are done, I'd like to thank our speakers, Chris and Abhijit, for taking the time out. It's really been nice and informative. I'm getting back channel comments on our group saying it was a fantastic conversation. Everybody liked it. We could have gone on and on. I'm sure there is so much knowledge to be shared, but we have to limit ourselves within this hour. So thank you very much to all the judges, and thank you to all the participants to submit all their entries. A happy World Food Day. Like we said, look out, understand your food, the food system, the past, the present, and the future, and finally, the decisions that you make are the ones which will impact the world. So be very careful of that. You will be surprised. I'm sure as we all start looking deeper, you will start getting surprised about how you can make a difference. So please do keep that in mind. You can make a change, and it is don't feel disenfranchised, like I always say. And your choices are making a difference. So make informed choices. That's it. I'm Ramesh. I run Food Safety Works. You can reach out to us anytime. And before we close, any last words from Chris?
No, I think congratulations to everyone, and I think it's always heartening to see the younger generation pay more close attention to food. And I wish you the very best. And to particularly all of the boys, please make sure that you learn how to cook. This is not something that only women do. This is a life skill that all of you need to pick up and understand where your food comes from. And cook and enjoy delicious food sustainably, and just get inspiration from people like Abhijit, who will continue to push the envelope on what you can do with sustainable food, and make it delicious as well. So best of luck, everyone.
Thank you, Chef. Your last few sentences.
So it is really wonderful to be a part of this very interesting event, and thank you everybody for your contribution. And happy World Food Day, and I'm sure that you will all eat well and also make yourself feel healthier and for a better future. Thank you.
All right, thank you everyone, and we'll have a good weekend, and we'll see you having some great food. So look forward to catching up with you guys once again. Thanks and bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.